in my bag. So soft and so tender. Daddy in the kitchen and he told me, son, listen. He said, you don't have to play the part that they wrote for you. You don't have to play the part.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of the Soft and Tender interview series. I'm your host, Rich Robbins, here with an amazing panel of individuals. The goal of this series is to shed light on and celebrate the Black fathers that are not only involved in our lives, but really have helped shape who we are and in turn help shape the communities that we're a part of. So I want to kick things off with, how would you describe the widespread understanding of Black fatherhood? And does that reflect on who your primary father figures are or were?
I think Black fatherhood has been kind of cast as being like strong, but sometimes too hard, not as soft and tender as you would like to be. But I don't think that reflects on my father. I think my father is very much, a loving individual, never have a problem with, showing me affection. To this day, he sees me, hugs me, kisses me. I'm, a little bit bigger than him even. And I feel like, I've never experienced that in the media, and it's kind of hard to kind of differentiate that from what the expectation is of Black fatherhood.
My father, he has everything. He has the strictness, he has the tough mentality for sure, but at the same time, my dad is a sweet guy.
Every Black father I know is affectionate with their children. It's just not what's, advertised. I don't want to say it just like that, but it definitely feels like that's not the story that gets out, but that is a part of the true story as far as I've ever known it to be,
Yeah.
So truth be told, my dad passed away when I was younger, and so I got to know him as I got older through stories, through getting older and realizing what made me tick and where I get it from. You know what I mean? Like your mother always tells you, like, you get that from your daddy, right? And then you realize you're like, oh no, actually I get this, and this from him. You know what I mean? But I didn't figure that out until I got older, and so understanding how Black fathers are viewed around me, so to speak, right? But then also like relearning who this person is and like dedicating parts of my life to like learning who this person was, who this person is in my eyes now is different than what it was when I was younger and what it was even last year, right? Because part of that challenge is like, I know that he didn't just fit in whatever mold is like out there.
Do you have other father figures that have played big roles in your lives?
Yeah, I was raised into the church, and my pastor was one of them guys that we don't have to necessarily talk every day, but every time we see each other, he always makes sure I'm okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a simple questions of, hey, how you doing? And you coming up as a little kid, like I didn't realize how much that meant at that time, but when you reflect on it, it's like, wow, this having someone that constantly shows that they care was huge for me.
Well, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was very important in my life. He was always there. Him and my dad kind of, worked in conjunction to help raise me, along with a lot of other, father figures that I had in my life. But they say like a village raises a child.
Yeah.
It was really important that, my grandfather and my dad were there, and they instilled the help from other father figures around them, the people that they learn from as well.
It takes a village, right? Like, and that's absolutely something I learned. One person I just talked to him the other day was my Uncle Mo. He's my dad's best friend. Like, and Uncle Mo done seen some shit now. And Uncle Mo, you know what I'm saying? And he's somebody who no matter what the gamble I was taking in life or the decision I was making, like, he'd been at that crossroads before, either made the right decision or made the wrong decision. And so the wall of judgment just comes down, right? And even that, like, that need to, like, sugarcoat his own choices in life, like, he'll just tell me when he messed up, or when he made a bad decision and how it turned out, or when he made a good decision and the gamble that he made, or how he got in trouble at this time and how he got himself out of it. And it's not so much for advice of how to get yourself out of trouble and this and that. It was to let me know, like, everybody makes mistakes.
Where was your relationship with your father when you were younger, and how did it evolve to today? Right? And were there any milestone memories? Is there one milestone or a couple milestones that happened that caused that evolution?
With my dad, he's always been someone that's been there. He's a great guy, great man. He always, worked and sacrificed for everything. Like, there was never a day where I didn't have anything in my house, or I didn't have nothing, or no food, or there was always lights on. That's one thing that my dad definitely made sure. I think once I got to college, my senior year in college, I actually found out that my dad cheated on my mother. And it was something that was unexpected. So at that point in time, I kind of drifted away from my father. it took me so long to really even talk to him. I mean, it was like 2 months or so before we even talked. Once I realized that my dad wasn't the most perfect guy in the world, that's when I started to learn like more about my father. I know he's just like me.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, and I'm grateful for that.
By the time I got to high school, kind of separated myself from my dad a bit because I felt like I'm an adult now. I know what I'm doing. And then I get to college, and I get like this level of fiscal responsibility. So I'm like, oh, I don't need him for money anymore. Like, what do I really need to learn from a parent at this point for? I would say I moved out to Chicago about 6 years ago, and for the first couple of years I was out here, me and my dad didn't really communicate as much. We would chat around holidays and maybe once every few weeks if something was going on, hey, just checking in on you. Okay, cool. I think that my dad, he started to lose a few of his siblings. And I felt like he reached out to me and used me as like a sounding board, and I realized he's human as well. He needs someone to talk to. He's not invincible, and he needs me and I need him. So I felt like there was a point where I had to buckle down and say, you know what, there's never a point he's going to stop being my father. I can learn from him and he can learn from me too.
Hi, I'm Darius Hillman. Joining me on The Next in the Arena, internationally acclaimed thought leader and architect at the forefront of the digital transformation of cities, George Burciaga.
As poor as I was, I always felt loved somehow, and I always found a place to love back.
Tuesday at 7 p.m. on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 and streaming on cantv.org and the CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
On the next episode of Hustle, Play, Love, we'll talk to a big idea chaser who was inspired to start a business for the culture to preserve and share Black history. And I'll be joined by Chicago's native son and international jazz composer and percussionist, Kahil El-Zabar. Tuesday, January 23rd at 7:30 p.m. on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
I'm in my bag. So soft and so tender.
Oh man, I think I really started to get to know who my dad was when I started fucking up. Tumultuous relationship between like me and my older brother, who's always been like there. I haven't mentioned him yet because he ain't my daddy, but but he's definitely been an instrumental figure in my life. And it was tumultuous relationship between him and my mom, and so I'm trying to figure things out and keep the family together, right? But also from the child's standpoint, but also even at 20, you're still the youngest, you're still the child in the grand scheme of the family, right? So you're trying to keep things together, but then you also realize, okay, I just was like, you know what? I've been reading a bunch, talking to a bunch of people. I was like, I think I'm gonna go to therapy because I'm gonna be able to get some clarity. And this was like 2015, 14. Okay. So like, and so I'm like, I'm gonna go to therapy. And as I started to go to therapy, it's the same thing you guys all been saying. I realized my dad was just a dude, man. Like he's a dude. He's not like superhuman or wasn't endowed with some special like strength or something that like no other person had. Like this is a man. You know what I'm saying? And I started to realize like, oh, I started to have a lot more empathy for decisions he made in certain situations. I started to have a lot more empathy for a situation he ended up in. Started to have a lot more empathy for his thought process in different moments, and also what he wanted from like me and my brother, right? And I started to like, as I started to do that, I was going to therapy, I started to like meditate and do things like that. And so I'm meditating, and probably up until 25, I'd never asked for a picture of my dad. I'd had some, but I'd never asked to see one. You know what I mean? And it was like, I don't know if it was like pride or what, but I never asked to see one. And so when I started meditating, I started to like meditate and I would see him. Wow. You know what I'm saying? And so, and then without asking for pictures, people just started sending me more pictures. Whoa. And like, you know what I'm saying? And you start to realize, like, okay, like God, the universe is at work, and like, I'm now ready to receive all the lessons. Right. And so every time I'm meditating, try to meditate through a problem or find clarity or anything like that, like he is a part of that.
And we're talking about like how we found the humanity within our fathers at this point, right? Mm-hmm. If your dad had a superpower, what would that superpower be?
He's a guy that will always finish something that he starts.
That is a superpower?
That is a superpower.
Yeah, I mean, I would say my dad wouldn't call him a master of none. You know, he tries a lot of different things and he's great at a lot of things, but you know, my friends always joke that he's a Renaissance man. Like he'll always try something new and you know, kind of figure it out and get to a space where he's like, all right, well, that challenge was cool. Let me find the next thing. Because he's like, I want you to try as much as you can while you're here. So I would say that's my dad's kind of superpower.
I think Pops could predict the future, man. Simple shit. You know what I mean? Like simple stuff, just simple lessons he would tell my mom or my brother. And we'll be repeating these to each other like 20 years later.
Yeah.
And like, haven't faded, haven't changed. Words are still the same.
For y'all, you know, what are some of the good attributes that that you discovered in your father that you see in yourself now, that you picked up on now?
He would be so mindful about the responsibility he carried as like this big dude in the room, or as this loud person in the room, or someone that people might follow, or someone that people might look to. And now I done inherited his size and like a lot of other stuff. And I'm like real mindful about everything. You know what I mean? Everything. I try to carry myself with a gentle heart and like a tender tone, because like I picked it up from him. He's like, you could always flip the switch if you need to.
Facts.
Just kind of being able to float in the room. You know, like my dad is the type of person that can go in anywhere and, you know, talk to people about anything. I would say that he's the type of person that knows that, you know, people mostly want to talk about themselves. So he can, you know, break it down to a point where it's like, all right, well, I don't know anything about, you know, Chinese literature, but if that's what you want to talk about, we can get into it for an hour. Like, he'll just know how to do that. He just gets into this space where he can just like get it all out of you and you won't even realize it.
What has your father taught you about emotional vulnerability, and can you tell us about a time you had to be vulnerable with him or he was vulnerable with you?
It wasn't until I found out that he was cheating where that kind of came into fruition. So I think as of recent, it's something that he's still learning to do, to be vulnerable, to be able to communicate. And that's something that I struggled with initially too, is being able to communicate and vulnerability.
Growing up, I used to cry to my dad a lot. Was a really bad sore loser. Like
really?
The worst. Yeah, the absolute worst. I would cry when my football team lost, you know, on Sundays. So I remember being at like, you know, Kung Fu tournaments when I was younger, and, you know, I would lose, maybe come in second place even, and I would break down right there. My dad would just, you know, it's okay to cry. He'd maybe pull me off to the side and say, hey, you know, cry in front of me, because if they see that, they're going to take it as weakness. But I mean, as he got older, he kind of understood that, you know, sometimes you just need to let it out where you need to let it out at.
My dad had depression his entire life, and it was mostly undiagnosed, right? And so the first time my dad was truly vulnerable with me was when I was like 10. He was also, my dad was an alcoholic, he had a lot of stuff going on. But he had an accident, something happened. And he sat me down to explain what happened and how it happened. And I remember him getting real emotional. And you're a kid, like, you see your parents crying or whatever, you're like, oh, it's okay. And he looked at me and he said, I gotta tell you something. It's not okay. It's not okay. I'm not okay. What that taught me was whenever I felt not okay, to do things, to try to do things to help myself feel better, to talk, to go to therapy, to read, to meditate, to pray.
How has your ability to handle conflict been shaped by your father?
So much of like how I handle conflict and how I view my way of handling conflict is so much powered by my dad and him teaching me the responsibility, like, you know, if you could see things going a few different ways and one of them leaves the most people happy, like he will always strive for that.
My dad is a little more confrontational than I am. I'm more of a pacifist. So, you know, I've seen him in spaces where he'll get loud with people in public. I've seen him in situations where, you know, he'll get angry. I've seen my dad fight a few times. And he's also told me some stories where he's like, and I don't regret it. And I'm like, I don't think that was supposed to be the lesson of that. But I think that just kind of seeing what he does and knowing that, you know, it's probably not the best way to handle it at all times is what I learned from.
You know, my dad wasn't the best communicator. Like, if he believes in something strongly, he's going to definitely go that route to the finish line. So kind of just seeing that, it's like, okay, well, maybe I should kind of be more understanding and kind of seek the why more often. You know, he's more like straight to the answer at times.
On the next Chicago Newsroom 2.0, we'll take a closer look at the current state of Chicago with journalists and roundtable regulars Samantha Thomas and Francia Garcia Hernandez.
How do we support communities in need? How do we make decisions with communities?
Join the conversation Wednesday at 7 p.m. on CAN TV, cable channel 19, or stream live on cantv.org or on the new CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
I'm Ugo Walta, host of the program 3 Questions With. We often associate homelessness with images of individuals sleeping on the streets, in tents, or under bridges. But there's a less visible form of homelessness that is just as prevalent, if not more so.
Because they're not considered literally homeless, they're not counted. It's an invisible population that's just sitting there in a very dangerous situation.
Join us on Wednesday at 7:30 in the evening via Channel 19, streaming on cantv.org and the CAN TV Plus app.
I'm in my bag. So soft and so tender.
What do you wish was different about your relationship with your dad?
You mentioned a little earlier that me and my dad weren't as close when, I got a little older. So I think that having that time back would be something that I would wish for. I think that, there was a lot that I had to teach myself and learn by myself, and, it wasn't always easy. So I think just being in a space where I was comfortable with my dad in that during that time period in my life, and saying, you know what, it's okay to listen and kind of take this in. You don't know everything.
I don't think I'd change anything. I always kind of, I try to think about it like, well, maybe I change this, maybe I change that. But at the end of the day, I want to be who I am today without any of those experiences.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer is, right, is like more time with my dad, right?
Sure.
And more years and more time and more being able to see this and see that, right? I am who I am because of this, right?
Right.
And I know that if the questions are hypothetical about how, but there is no way I could be who I am without all of that happening, right? Mm-hmm. The only thing I wish I could change is I wish I could tell him it worked.
Tell us what you're proud of about your dad.
The impact that he made on so many people. I was talking to my Uncle Mo the other day, and he was telling me all these stories, like hilarious stories. Like my dad's this big dude, like sweating in the corner at the party. But as soon as the song comes on, like he loved that song, Pick Up the Pieces, Average White Band.
Okay.
And he would just get out there and get crazy with it, man. Like Twinkle Toes, right? And so but that was just the impact he would make in situations was like dope, man. Like that's some shit that you hear about, and it just makes you get to know a person without ever meeting them.
I would just say I'm really proud of my dad's growth. Like he's grown, he's still growing, and I think in a lot of cases you think you've reached the pinnacle of life. You're like, all right, well, now I have all this wisdom to give, and I don't have anything else to learn for myself. And my dad is the proponent of always learning, always being a better person. And I mean, I'm just very proud that he's taken initiative to always be a better version of himself every single day, and make sure the people around him are being better people as well.
For me, I'm proud of my father's consistency. No matter what, he'll find a way to be there. Like any type of event, any type of game, or usually concert or anything like that, he always finds a way.
Yeah.
And again, he made something out of nothing. So just the consistency in that manner is amazing, and it also consistency in growth. Like my dad's not perfect, but he's constantly doing these things like therapy and communicating more now because he wasn't the best communicator in the past.
Last question for y'all. What do you want people to know about Black fatherhood?
It's a beautiful thing. Like, it may not be the most perfect thing in the world, but Black fatherhood can be vulnerable. You can cry within Black fatherhood. There's a lot of lessons to learn within Black fatherhood. At the same time, we're all strong. Like, my father, and I'm sure all of y'all fathers are very strong individuals. So that's what I want people to know is, we're strong, but also we are faced with a lot of challenges, but we always make it through.
I'm learning this from a whole different standpoint. A couple weeks ago, I found out I'm gonna be a father in December, and so I'm. This is some cheesy shit. It is the gift that keeps on giving, bro. Because like every lesson I'm not white, so I'm black, so I'm gonna talk about what I know. You know what I'm saying? It's like every lesson within Black fatherhood builds on the next. And so it's the gift that keeps on giving, because I get to teach, my child everything I learned about my father and everything I learned about his father, but then all these little things that I done picked up along the way.
Right.
And they can disregard whatever they want. They can listen to whatever they want, but like some of it I know is gonna stick because it's stuck with me, right?
Facts.
And then that's gonna influence my grandkids one day.
Right.
And so like, it's a never ending gift, and we get to do this.
Yes, bro. Yeah.
It doesn't fit in one box. It's a lot of lessons to be learned, but it's beautiful. It's generational. It lasts for a long time. Whatever you put into it, it's going to grow and it's going to manifest itself and become something even more beautiful. So, Black fatherhood is important. It's vital. It's just very important to tell yourself and to tell others around you how important it is, and be there for the people who need you as a father.
Thank y'all. I mean, I think it's also just important that y'all were present today, share these stories today. So I can't tell you enough, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for showing up today and opening up too. I was telling y'all that I definitely think that this is bigger than us, and I think for every Black dad, they got to understand too that it's bigger than just you, and that is a blessing. It's not a burden to be carrying around. So thank y'all for your time, and blessings to y'all, man.
Appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So soft and so tender. Daddy in the kitchen and he told me, son, listen. He said, you don't have to play the part that they wrote for you. You don't have to play the part.
I'm like, how he do that twice? Why that boy so nice? Why he cuff the mic like a baby bite?
So soft and tender. Bet he like that in any weather. Bet he only bite if he
don't get it twisted. I be in the gym ready to box. Why would I not? Niggas out here creeping hard on the block. My pops taught me if you can't win the fight with your brain, you could definitely throw a hand. I'm in my bag.
So soft and so tender. Daddy in the kitchen and he told me, son, listen. He said, you don't have to play the part that they wrote for you. You don't have to play the part. I'm in my bag.
But talk to me, speaking of soft and tender, which is evolving as I'm watching. So tell me how you conceived, what went into the creation, production, writing of the Soft and Tender EP. What was the song under that music? What underpinned it?
Yeah, so it started with the Soft and Tender song that was written. That was the first song that I wrote in the condo that I purchased 2 years ago in a neighborhood in Chicago. I won't say which neighborhood.
Good for you.
In a neighborhood
Smart
in Chicago.
choice.
and so I think that was like there was something about that being the first song in a space that I owned, that felt so important. And I don't know what it was that a song about my dad came out of that. I've never talked about my dad in that way.
At a key point in your life.
Yeah,
that's what came.
Right. At this milestone moment, that's what came out of my body was that, And so I had a roommate at the time, and my roommate was there while I was making the song, and he was like, "Yo, you got something with this." And the fact that it came from him, I was like, "Okay, that means something," And so that song came out, and the EP actually wasn't even thought about when the song came out. And then I had a conversation with my manager, Felton. We had just started working together, and we were like, we got to put a project out together, like our first joint effort, And so I was like, well, I got this song, and I got this other song, and I can make an intro. I made the intro that night in like 2 hours. That intro features Shawnee Dez. Shout out Shawnee Dez for making that a historical moment for me. And then we put together the 5 songs, and then I got to shout out my homie Link also from Toronto. He was visiting 1 month, and we were listening to the song, and he was like, this conversation this song is a conversation starter, and it can be had with people that look like us, And I was like, yeah, okay. Well, what if we just do some funding for a series, And I got all these series that I watch on you. I'm a big YouTube watcher, so I'm like, I got all these series that I love, and why can't we make that? We could make that, and we did. We crowdsourced and crowdfunded 3 episodes, and the music is what inspired it, you know, and that's how I want my career to be. Is I want to do all these. I have so many things that I want to do. I'm a big anime fan, and so I'm like, imagination is my thing, you know. I have a big action figure collection to this day.
Oh,
you
wow.
know,
Okay.
actively, you know, like my brain is always working to build worlds, and so but I also know music is the foundation for it. As long as I keep doing that and keep being creative, it's endless what we can do.
And I have seen Chicago, the first 3 episodes of Soft and Tender, and you really are, I said this at the beginning of the show, I think there's an anointing on you. This is not, it can be great, it can be wonderful, but this is not easy to do. And the level of conversation and discourse you had with the gentlemen who have been on your show is powerful. So let me just witness that publicly. What do you hope to accomplish? What do you want the viewer to get from the Soft and Tender television conversation series?
Yeah, I want them to see how normal our stories are. I want them to find themselves in the stories that are told, and I want them to see how universally impactful and moving Black fatherhood is. I think we have these very confined stories in our head and confined boundaries in our head of what Black fathers can do and what they are and how they're able to love. And I want to show them that it's actually limitless, you know, and no matter what your story is, there is somebody else out there that shares a commonality with you. You know, and so I want people to come and find common ground with the men that are on set with us.
Tell my father that I love him and it was an honor. Epiphanies I had right before I light the blunt up. Brown man taught me I could love how I wanna. So soft and so tender. Daddy in the kitchen and he told me, son, listen.